So just quickly about me, I started my private practice in Santa Barbara, moved up here in July. I do one-on-one sessions, mainly through video conferencing, and I also do talks for various, in promoting integrative psychiatry, which again, as I explained before, is that combination of, modern science along with ancient healing practices that have been validated by modern science. And so I combine those together to create a complete program that's customized for each client of mine. But there are some general principles, and I'd like to try to teach you how I think when I look at clients, or when I get clients whether they're suffering from severe mental disorder to moderate, and I actually even get clients to me that don't have mental disorders but simply want to perform better. It's Silicon Valley. So trying to get them, smarter, better memory, just because and the stress level in this area, I can feel from Santa Barbara here is, big difference. So these are the 10 foundational principles for a healthy mind. They may grow with time, but these are the 10 that I've come up with so far. And so this is my website, Santa Barbara Integrative Psychiatry.com. You can go to that website. My email is there. You can email me personally if you had any particular questions. I'm going to be starting another website probably by March 1st. It'll be launched, and it will be having articles and all this other stuff. So if you want to be a part of that new information and just get more healthy, integrative psychiatric information, feel free to email me, and I can put you on a list that we're going to start to develop. So just let me know. At the end, I'm going to give you my email address, and let me know if you have any problems reading it or anything and you want to be able to contact me. So this is my CYA screen here. All material provided, lectures for information and educational purposes. Consult the physician regarding the applicability of any opinions or recommendations with respect to your symptoms or medical condition. I can get through that now. Oh, it doesn't come up quite well. But I'm going to try to put that camera over here. So
You're dim the lights. Could you turn that light off?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's try to.
Can you turn the light off? Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Oops.
So we're going to hold questions because we are going we're going to go pretty quickly through this to the end.
Sorry.
So principle number 1, nourish positive brain growth and destroy unhealthy brain structures. So right now as you're sitting there, your brain is dynamic. It's changing all the time. We didn't think about this maybe 20 or 30 years ago. We thought that once you're an adult, your brain didn't change very much. It just slowly withered and died as it gone on. Like many times we start to really understand, that's not true. Your brain is constantly in a dynamic actually growing new neurons in certain key areas of the brain. It's growing new branches, it's doing all this. And if we're not living in optimal environments, you also can get withering of the brain, destruction of the brain. Faster destruction than what is normal. So there are over 1 billion neurons in your head right now. Over 1 trillion cells, 100 billion interconnected neurons, and each neuron can make up to 5 to 10,000 connections with each other. They make these connections through dendrites, which is they're like the little microphones, so they listen to the other cells that are next to them. So they're just constantly, so the more connections you get, the more ways that they can come up with creative solutions, and the more powerful your brain becomes in informational processing. So when you take these 10,000 connections and you take the 100 billion neurons and you times that together, you get the number of firing patterns that are available in your brain, and which is the number of possible mental experiences. Is equal, and this is by Dan Siegel, a famous psychiatrist, in his book Mindsight, the number of atoms in the known universe. So virtually, the number of states that you can have, mental states and choices, is virtually infinite. So oftentimes, myself included, you'll feel stuck. You'll feel like, I keep on falling in a rut, I keep on doing things. Well, the actual science and the possibilities of new states and the infinite reservoir that we have, that being stuck is simply a thought. It's not actual reality. Scientifically proven that there are so many new and creative ways that your brain can actually come up with different solutions that it's quite possible. It's just a matter of getting out of these habitual patterns that we seem to find ourselves in. The very fascinating thing, oftentimes you hear the brain is your hardware. It's computer metaphors we use for the brain. It's hardware, your mind is the software. However, there's a distinct difference between our brains and minds and computers. And that is that I don't know of any computer, at least to my knowledge, that actually the hardware can change and restructure itself from the software that's going on. It actually has a two-way street. It's like a circle. Your brain firing patterns will influence what you experience in your mind. What you experience in your mind will then also influence your brain firing patterns, which then changes the structure of your brain. Like I said, in key areas you can get new neurons developing, and also you can get those neurons creating new connections. So if you had connections that are related to not good enough, negative thoughts, negative emotions, and those get more and more powerful the more we use them through repetition, day in and day out. When we start to shift that, we can actually literally let those wither away and create new connections. Let's say you started to make more friends and connections. You start to see life rather than pessimistically. You start to see it more optimistically. Then those patterns become strengthened. And it takes about 6 weeks for these new patterns, the new neurons that are being set down, to kind of take hold. And by doing that, and then about 2 years, you can actually almost totally revamp your brain by doing these practices. So by reinforcing those mind patterns, what you do is, so when I start to learn a new skill, when I learn some new knowledge, whether you're learning a computer program or how to use a new computer program, learning a new language, learning a new dance, learning a new exercise, a new movement, you continuously start to use these spots. You start firing these same firing patterns. The brain, what it does is that it makes those connections. Say, well, this is important to this person because the person keeps doing it. So let's make it faster. So one of the ways it does so is it insulates one of the parts of our brain. It's called the axon, which is the axon is what receives the messages. It's what actually sends out the messages to the other cells. It's sort of like the speaker. Like the dendrites are the microphone that connect and get all the messages, and your axon is the speaker. It tells the message out to the other neuron. It broadcasts it outwards. And by doing that, over time, there are cells that can actually insulate that axon, and it works electrically. So anyone who fiddles around with electricity at all, we know that if we have insulation, it makes the electrical current more coherent and less likely, and it makes it faster and more efficient. And basically that's what happens. You keep repeating these things, you can actually make that connection between those neurons up to 100 times faster. It's like the difference of going on your cellular phone and then going on Wi-Fi. So what do you want your brain? You want your brain to run on cellular, or do you want it to run on Wi-Fi? The choice is yours, and I'm here to help give you those choices to you. So this whole changing of the brain actually changing and adapting itself to the environment that it's in, so that it can actually be at the most optimal states to deal with the environment, to learn to flow with it. It's called neuroplasticity. There is a hormone, you're not going to need to worry about this, but it's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. For those who like to go on the internet and look up stuff, BDNF, it's one of the most common markers of neuroplasticity. So when we're looking at these different activities here, we can look and measure different levels of BDNF. And what I like to call it, and a couple of people we call it brain fertilizer. So you set the seeds down with new habits, and then you give it brain fertilizer, and then put it in optimum environments, and now you grow all these new. It's like growing a plant, these neurons and stuff. So the two I think are the most important that I work with in my practice is sleep and exercise. And we're going to get a little bit more into that. So the other thing is then we go into the actual raw materials, so omega-3 fatty acids. It's estimated that 95 to 95% of the United States is deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. The berries, so I like the berries, cherries, pomegranate seeds, red and black grapes. So blue, black, red, these are the powerful, they have these powerful compounds that help stimulate neuroplasticity in the brain. And I make it a habit to eat 1 to 2 of these every day to help do that. The cool thing is cocoa flavonoids. Again, not alkali process or not Dutch process that actually ruins some of the flavonoids. So you want, I think the best way to use it is just get a nice good cocoa so it's not mixed with all the sugar, and then add them into shakes and whatnot. You can make nice chocolate smoothies, and get benefits and then boost your brain power. That's the easiest way to do it. Resistant starches. Those are your legumes and lentils and a couple other foods as well. So these resistant starches are not able to be broken down by your digestive system, so they actually feed the healthy bacteria in your gut. And we're going to get into a little bit more, but they form a substance called butyrate, which helps actually keep the integrity. There's a barrier between your brain and the rest of your body called the blood-brain barrier. And we want that to function really well, because otherwise toxins will get into our brain, or you might not get the healthy stuff efficiently into your brain. So we want to make that blood-brain barrier working at its optimal function. So butyrate is one of the things, and stimulates brain growth. Melatonin. One of the things I like to use a lot of times with clients if they're having some mild to moderate insomnia. There's generally ways to do it that are more effective than others. Another one is digestive rest. And this is one I like to really have because this really helps the brain detoxify. So if you just go 12 hours without rest, so just think of it, 8 to 8, 9 to 9, 10 to 10, whatever works for you. In fact, all the way up to like 15 hours for some who really like to go for it, will actually stimulate brain growth. One of the most powerful ones that's coming more obvious is close, nurturing relationships. The other thing is maintaining a healthy weight. Those who are obese or overweight have lower levels of neuroplasticity and lower levels of BDNF in their body. And then the last one is more the psychological aspect we have, and I call it the NEAR acronym. So novelty, exposing yourself to new things, new habits, new ways of doing things, new languages, new skills. Any of that will stimulate the brain. Because just think about it, anything you learn, it correlates with the structural change that correlates with that learning. So if you're learning new things, but if you're in a kind of constant habit, just doing the same old things, well then the brain's just going to kind of be, it just gets lazy, it doesn't need to do anything, and it doesn't stimulate growth. The E stands for emotion. Emotions are some of the most powerful things I think we all can agree in our lives. Unfortunately, our culture is very emotionally unintelligent because we've been enculturated that emotions are weak, and we try to just get the positive ones, but they come as a package deal. You can't just get the positive. You can't selectively repress your emotions and get the good ones and keep away the bad ones. Attention, what you put your focus on, is one of the most powerful things that you can utilize, and the skill of adapting and making sure how to utilize that attention is one of the most powerful tools that I teach my clients and everyone else that I work with. And when you can skillfully use your attention, your health can dramatically improve. And then the last one, repetition. Repetition is sort of the engine of it all. And we kind of know this. When you're learning new skills, you just do it once and that's it? No, you have to keep doing it again and again and again. But if you add in novelty, if you add emotional engagement, if you add focus of attention, with the repetition is the engine that drives this home, that really consolidates the gains that we have. So this is one of the big ones I go with. Principle number 2, give your brain the right materials to rebuild itself with, and avoid unhealthy materials. The two I'm just going to briefly mention is sugar and oxidized fats. You want your brain to have a stable blood sugar. 2% of your body weight is your brain, only 2%, but it takes up 20 to 25% of your calories. And it's constantly going on. It doesn't go high, low, even when you're like highly concentrating, and when you're asleep, about the same use of energy. It's like a refrigerator. It runs constantly. So what you want to do is, if anybody who's like done any kind of business or had any inventory, you want to match supply and demand as closely as possible. If you don't, you wind up creating inefficiencies. So if we create a stabilized blood sugar, then you get the supply and demand match each other. So you get a much more efficient system. And when you get sugar spikes and down, we create inflammation in the brain. We activate our stress systems. And I know a lot of us are really wanting more stress in our lives. So what we need to do is avoid these kind of highs and lows, and particularly in certain disorders like bipolar or any other condition that has this kind of high-low kind of component. The other one is oxidized fats. I know this one's going to be a tough one when I say it, but fried foods, they're so destructive. You know, the reason being is that our brain is 60% fat. And so it's constantly needing new healthy fats to regenerate itself, to be able to, especially on the outer lining of the neurons where they communicate and connect and send signals. If you're giving oxidized fats, you're actually creating a neuron that's most likely going to become dysfunctional really quickly, or at least not optimally functioning. To think about oxidation is like when iron turns to rust. So you really don't want to develop rusty neurons in your life. So again, I was saying brain loves fat. Healthy fats. So we want to go with raw, not cooked. If you want to toast them up yourself, that's fine, lightly. But raw nuts, seeds, avocados, and whole coconut. We definitely want to get the omega-3 fatty acids. I can go over that if people don't have it at the end, if you have any questions regarding omega-3 fatty acids. But the ones I like are flax, chia, walnuts, and hemp. And these two guys, the flax and chia, there's much more information coming out now. They have these special compounds called lignans that act like kind of estrogen-like compounds that are healthy even for men and women. And they had a study with flax that just, I think it was like 15 grams of flax, which is like about 2 tablespoons a day, cut breast reduction risk, breast cancer risk by up to 40%. So, and then you can also improve your brain. And then vitamin E, which is a powerful antioxidant. Not that we take as a pill. Actually, vitamin E as a pill winds up causing, it actually may increase mortality risk. While when you get it naturally in foods from almonds, avocados, and sunflower seeds, it has powerful effects at maintaining and preserving your neurons. So I like to go into the superfruits, and I think someone else was talking about it. Improving language, reducing oxidation, and reducing inflammation, improving memory. So pomegranates, I love pomegranates. Pomegranate seeds, you can go to Trader Joe's, they sell them de-seeded. Right now you still can get the real ones, it's still at the tail end of the season. Cut them open, and I could also even describe how to use them. They're actually fairly easy, just go watch a YouTube video to get it. And they're wonderful. They're just fantastic. Not only do they help your brain, they help with arthritis, they help with improving sexual function. I know a lot of us would love to have that. So eating those pomegranates are extremely powerful. And in that particular study, a couple studies, memory, performance, and retention were improved through use of pomegranates. Next one is dark cherries, which actually improve verbal fluency and both short-term and long-term memory. Now, when it comes to foods, unlike drugs or supplements, you know, the effects are generally a little bit slow. You know, you got to continue to use them, rebuild the foundation. However, these foods are so powerful that, especially the berries, they did a study where they just gave 8 ounces of blueberry juice to children. And then they gave them a validated test of their cognitive function. And just by drinking blueberry juice once, they actually showed acutely significant improvements in cognitive function in children. That's even the juice, which I don't even really recommend, but if you're going to drink juice, pomegranate and blueberry juice. And if you don't have access, you know, to the seeds, the pomegranate, 2 ounces of juice. You can add to your smoothies to a day. Will give you some benefit without adding too much sugar without the fiber. Principle number 3, heal and strengthen your gut, and you will heal and strengthen your brain. You know, it's not just eating good food to a man's heart, it's also to a woman's and everyone else. It's in our heart, meaning our heart mind. You know, it's so important. And I was actually reminded of this. I actually ate a food that didn't do too well for me, and it made my stomach very sensitive. And my God, how quickly my mood just felt dropped. I mean, when's the last time you had a pretty good kind of stomach ache, or you know, just didn't feel good inside? How energetic were you? How well would you do with complex tasks, having to read something and figure out something new? How good would you have been in that case? It's obvious. There's more neurons. It's called the second brain for good reason. It has so many different neurons surrounding it, and they communicate with each other in really fascinating ways that I'll go into briefly when I get to that sheet. So the brain and gut connection. It may be interesting that 75% of your neurotransmitters are made in your gut, anywhere from 75 to 90% of your serotonin, one of the more famous ones that we talk about with antidepressants, whatever, is made in your gut. If any of you have had loved ones or yourselves be on antidepressants, one of the major side effects is bloating, nausea, diarrhea, Why is that? That's because most of what it's doing is it's changing the serotonin in your gut, and your gut's like, whoa, what's going on here? And for those of us who have more sensitive guts, you're going to get those kind of side effects. Generally, after using it for some time, as long as it's not too severe and you go slowly enough with the medication, those tend to subside. The issue with chronic stress, though, alters the microbiome. The microbiome is all the bacteria that we have in our gut. Bacteria, yeast, all kinds of microbes. We're not a single organism. We are an ecosystem. And we need these bacteria to help us survive. Why? Because there's 10 times more bacterial cells than there are your cells. That's how many bacteria are there. And not only that, they have 150 times the genes. Now your genes create the proteins that create most of the structures around your body. And so what they do is a lot of the healthy ones, they create what's called a symbiotic relationship, meaning they get stuff from us, we get stuff from them. And they make a lot of the neurotransmitters that are healthy for our mind, like GABA, which is really important for giving us peace of mind and resiliency towards stress. Serotonin, same thing, boosted mood and all that. And what we want to do is we want to provide the healthy bacteria. So, people go out and do probiotics, and I think some of them, sometimes that can be helpful in specific cases. I used to give them out all the time, but I don't think we know enough about what's going on. It's so complex down there. So what I have found better is getting people back to the stuff that we know that gives us those healthy microbes. And those are fermented foods and then resistant starches, which provide food for those microbiomes. So prebiotics, consider it's the food to stimulate the healthy bacteria for us. And you find them in artichokes, leeks, bananas, sunchokes. And again, you can add the lentils and the beans to that because they provide the resistant starches which feed your bacteria. And then consider probiotics. So sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, tempeh, yogurt. I prefer non-dairy yogurt. They have a good one. I think So Delicious makes a coconut yogurt that's non-sweetened. It actually tastes pretty good, and I recommend that over than the other types of. I tend to have my clients avoid dairy. Let me ask you a question. Can we take a pause? Pace? Is it okay?
Yeah.
All right. Faster, slower, or just okay?
Good.
Perfect. All right. Principle number 4. High quality sleep and regular exercise are essential for optimum brain health. Can't emphasize this enough. Let's go into the sleep. Studies estimate that 90% correlation between disrupted sleep and depression generally precedes it. For depression, it's generally waking up a little bit earlier in the morning. You normally would get up at 7 and all of a sudden you're working up at 4. And this happens a couple times. So what I like to do is teach people, hey, if you can get and start doing these things before a full disorder goes in, it's an easy changer. And then actually then you can build yourself. So you go even beyond what normally was your potential and be able to do things in an optimal way. Make your bedroom quiet, cool, and dark. A gentleman, Dave Asprey, one of his books, Headstrong, he says, make your room into a cave, basically. Your bedroom into a cave, and I always like that. I think it's a good way to do it. This will optimize getting into the deeper stages of sleep. You have 4 stages of sleep with REM, in addition. We want the deep sleep. That's the most restorative. It's also known as slow wave sleep. That's when the brain is really, when we create a lot of growth hormone in the brain, when the brain is really, the neuroplastic changes that I was just telling you about, that gets ramped up. And that's what we really want to be able to do. What's so important is creating a nighttime ritual for yourself. When I work with any of my clients, this is something we work on right away, especially if they have any sleep issue. And that is just any type of ritual. You can just start a half hour before sleep or an hour before sleep, but something that starts to trigger your body. Because these rituals are very powerful because they inform our body to go into, and they anticipate it after we do it consistently, to get into and make sleep easier. How many people here have tried to fall asleep when they couldn't sleep? All right. Okay. So these are one of the double bindings we find ourselves in. There's many double bindings out there, but how successful are you when you really try to sleep? Not very. So what we can do is develop and optimize our environment around it. And then when you know the optimum environment around it, then your responsibility's done. Just let go. You sleep, you don't, and the more you have that type of behavior, you will finally, the environment will inform you, and with time and a little bit of patience, I have patients that have to just constantly just remind patients, keep doing it, just keep doing it, and finally, boom, it hits. And then create a morning ritual. So one of the most important things is making is getting yourself both, and during the big transitions of our day, we create rituals, and I'm going to go a little bit over rituals in another slide. But by creating these are sort of like islands of consistency, and that we can go into. With a life that right now, I think we all agree is becoming less consistent, more demanding. There's so many things going on. At the same time, the pace of our lives, I can almost guarantee you, has gone faster than it was 10 years ago. So by creating these rituals, it gives our body a chance to kind of gather itself, get ready. You know, if any of you have played sports, what did you do before a game? You got yourself into a ritual. It got you into an optimum state to take on the game. Again, same thing. Nighttime ritual. You now know that sleep is vitally important. So we want to get into the optimum state so that sleep can occur. We do a morning ritual, so we go into an optimum state to do what we ever have to do during our days. That will help give you this kind of stable ability to get into these optimized states. The kind of central concept here is destimulation. So you know the light bulb? It was less than 100, it was invented less than 150 years ago. Human-like hominoids have been on this planet for 3 million years. So evolutionarily, 150 years is nothing. And yet we had to try to adapt to these lightings and everything, and it profoundly impacts your sleep. If you're getting bright light when you're going to bed, particularly within the hour, you're going to hurt your ability to go into deep sleep. In some cases, totally obliterated. When that happens, your rate of Alzheimer's will go up, your rate of memory difficulties will go up. Memory difficulties will go up, irritability will go up, judgment will go down, and impulsivity goes up. So invest in your sleep, bed and bedroom. I really think if listen, if we're struggling with money or whatever and you have to partition, put it here. You take it away from cable, other things that may not be as healthy for you, and put it here. Really find a bed that when you lay in it, you really like it. It's not like, yeah, it's okay, yeah, it's all right. No, you want to be able to lay in it. That's nice, right? That's what you want to get. You want to invest in this. Crack your car or whatever else it might be, but get a great bed. And then some good sheets. Just 2 pairs, that's all you need. 2 pairs are really comfortable. So when you go in, you go to a nice hotel and oh my God, it feels good, and you sleep a little later, you feel a little bit better. Why not do that for yourself every day? That's how important this is, and when people do this and they care for themselves like that, it makes a tremendous difference. The other thing is consistency. It's being consistent, going to bed roughly the same time, waking up roughly the same time, is much more potent than the actual numbers themselves. Now, they're obviously, if you're going to bed and only sleeping 3 hours, it's going to have a profound impact. But it's the consistency that's really important to allow yourself to get your body to it, because your body anticipates things. Your entire system, all your hormones, your cortisol, your testosterone, your estrogen, all of them run on a biological clock. What sets that clock more than anything else? The day and the light and dark cycles of the day. So if you're getting blasting yourself, especially when you go into the bathroom and you turn on that bright light before you go to bed, bam, it only takes a couple seconds to actually destroy the melatonin that's being produced naturally in your brain. And then you're finding yourself, I'm thinking all these thoughts. So get a nightlight for the bathroom. Go to Amazon.com. I found one for $15, a nice one that goes in there. It really makes a large difference. So when you do your nighttime ritual, when things get dimmer, what do you feel like? If you're in a dim environment and you're at a restaurant, you're like, oh man, I feel like I'm going to fall asleep in here. Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do for yourself at home, and do it like that. All right, time 36. All right. So exercise. I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly, but depression and neurodegenerative disorders and Alzheimer's, 45% reduction with consistent exercise. It's therapeutic. It's basically therapeutic for almost any disorder that I encounter. But in particular, anxiety. It's one of my number one go-tos. is to go there. The anxiety helps channel some of that kind of circulating high levels of stress hormones in a productive way. Because when you exercise, you actually are stressing yourself, but you're stressing yourself in a positive way. So you're rechanneling that energy and then utilizing so that it will create more energy for you. But rather than that chaotic, wobbly way that's like anxiety, it's in that way that's coherent, that gives you energy. You know, I often find when I give patients relaxation techniques or some things that help them that are really anxious, and like, I don't have any energy, I don't have any energy. Then they learn to actually be able to allow that energy to just relax and rest, and then actually they have tremendous energy. It's just like they're like a leaking boat. Everything is kind of flying out and it's incoherent. But just like a light that shines out that has less power, but if you focus it into a laser, it generates more and more power. Same thing here. That's what we want to be able to do. And very helpful in depression. In fact, a couple studies have matched it head-to-head with antidepressants, and they do just as well. Blumenthal from Duke University did a very powerful against, I believe it was Zoloft and exercise. Found that they had the same results. And what's even better is that if you take someone off of Zoloft after the study, you know, they'll eventually, a lot of them will go into back and relapse or establish a new episode. But those who did the exercise were more resistant to that. They actually kept their kind of euthymic states and didn't go into depression as much as those who were on the medications. ADHD is essential. For a lot of athletes and everything, by stimulating that, you stimulate the brain and the attention. Chronic pain, extremely helpful, and schizophrenia. So basically, I generally recommend that you do 1 week of high-intensity interval training. I can't go into specific details on that. You can look that up, but you can just come up with something for yourself where basically you do it for like 60 seconds. First of all, you warm up. You develop, if you haven't done any exercise, first develop an aerobic capacity. Make sure if you have any musculoskeletal issues, make sure those all check out. But do some sort of where you vary the intensity. Go really intense for about 60 to 75 seconds, and then you rest until your whole body feels well rested, maybe another 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, and then repeat it again. That's all you need to do. I find that just doing that once a week has a profound impact on your brain health. And then 1 week of resistance training, any kind of thing. I mean, you don't necessarily have to use weights specifically. You can come up with weights, and just merely, hey, if you don't want to do anything like that, squats are the best exercise that you can do. That's the most vital. So just going into a chair. So what I'll just do is, you have your chair, all right, fancy equipment, and then you just come in here and you sit, you touch, and then you come back up. You sit, you touch, you come back up. Do that. You have to start with just 10. Just do it multiple times, and you will build the biggest muscles in your body. Again, we're looking for leverage here, so if you're short on time, the biggest muscles will have the most profound effect on your body. So the biggest muscles are your thighs, hamstrings, and your glutes. So that's what you do through squats. So if you just do that alone, you will actually improve the quality of life. They actually did a study where they measured the strength of the ability of the legs, and that predicted the ability of higher quality of life, especially as you got older. And then walking. Just walk more. Park your car a little bit farther away when it's not raining. Just do things, walk. But go out, if you can, go out in nature. We have to stack it, because that's also very healthy. Maybe walk with someone you like. Because generally, I don't know if you've noticed this, but when we walk and we talk at the same time, it just generally brings in the deeper, more meaningful conversations. And it just helps kind of bring and nurture those social connections as well. Okay, number 5, rejuvenate and strengthen the mind by giving it a daily time out in silence. Just think about how much you've stimulated your brain today. From when you got up this morning, whether you watched TV, whether you went on the internet, how much you looked at your smartphone today or your iPads or whatever you did, the music you listened to, the people you had to talk to, the demands, the challenges, the lights that you're constantly exposed to, whether it's fluorescent lights, whether it's for other kind of bright things, other people yelling at you, or we're driving in this traffic all here. Think about all the stimulation you've got. Our body's never stimulated like this ever before. Never. And so maybe, 300 years ago, you didn't have to do a daily silent practice, because oftentimes we had a lot of silence naturally in our day. That's not the case anymore. So carve out a small bit, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, start with something. And just give your body a chance to destimulate and just rest in silence. And I'll give you a couple tips on that. When I was bringing up that NEAR acronym to help with neuroplasticity, helping your brain grow healthy, I talked about attention. And attention is one of the most powerful skills. How to use it skillfully is one of the powerful means of really enhancing your mind's health. Think of your attention as the camera of your life. Right? What you put your attention on is what you experience. It's your camera. But how many of us actually train and practice with our attention? And how many is just haphazard? How many right now are just listening to me, but their mind is jumping into other things as you're talking, as you're doing it? Like, I want to focus on this, but what am I going to make tomorrow? What about this appointment? Or what about that appointment? And it's just jumping all around. What the Buddhists used to call it the monkey mind. You know, it just goes, but there are ways to cultivate so that you start to get better capability of directing your own attention to the things that matter to you. Rather than jumping, what if it goes back to something 20 years ago? Someone did something that you felt was wrong, and now you're in a business meeting or you're talking to a loved one, and it just keeps jumping back there. What? Then you start battling with yourself, and you're getting mad, and then the more mad you get, the more it actually goes back in the other direction. Have you noticed the things you resist persist? The brain goes kind of in the opposite direction. So what you focus on, you feel. If you're watching news every day, if you're watching really graphic, repetitive, fearful, anger, and going back and forth in large doses, small doses, sure, that's fine. But often we go in a lot larger doses than that, and we use these like very graphic videos and everything like that. Better maybe to go into like where it's more like on the text and written, less likely to activate those systems. But what you're putting your attention on determines how you're going to feel. How you feel is going to really overall stimulate, and what you feel anger, you feel fear often. When we use any of your emotions, when you use them more often, like anything else, they get stronger. Have you noticed if you get angry and irritable that it gets easier to get angry and irritable after a while? Angry, irritable, arrogant. You get fearful. I mean, I see this with anxiety patients. All of a sudden, fear, avoidance in their life that was once this large. It goes like this, goes like that, goes like that, until they can't even leave their home. And I have a lot of clients, who come to me that use video conferencing who are phobic and really can't leave their homes that well. So this is so important. And whatever you feel, and it gives value to, and your attention shapes your neural circuits. So let's say you have problems with language. It's not very fluent. When you say things, you're just like, I wish I was a little bit more eloquent. So you train yourself. Well, then the language centers in your brain will actually start to fire, grow, adapt, and all that stuff. So now you put your attention on language, the language center will grow. If you're bad at driving and finding locations, and you decide, I'm going to get some maps, I'm going to do this, I'm really going to learn this area. The occipital lobe, which has all the maps, actually grows. They did a study where they took taxi car drivers and they compared them to normal people. They put them in MRIs, they looked at the brain, and their occipital lobes were way larger than the average person. That's the power of neuroplasticity. And the cool thing is, that doesn't go away. They haven't found any age level in which that stops. Granted, when you're really young, it's enhanced, right? Especially in the early stages in life. But it's still there to our last breath. So what are your attentional practices? This is what I ask a lot of my clients. I have to say, what are your daily routines? What are the things that you're doing on a daily basis? And write them down. What do you, and I like to kind of guide this, is like use your 5 senses. What do you expose your eyes to every day, or most days a week? What are you watching? What are you looking at? What are you doing? And then when you do that, what do you feel when you're doing that? And after that, how do you feel afterwards? Do you feel nourished, or do you feel depleted? If you do that, if you go through your own life and do that, you'll be amazed how many behaviors you do that are fostering certain emotions and the sense of depletion that is like, I'm reinforcing this. Oh my goodness, no wonder I'm not feeling so great lately or anything like that. Then you can start to make your own customized program that you feel you could accomplish by adding in those other strategies. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I've gone over it before, but what is mindfulness? Also known as attentional skill training is basically mindfulness. And what mindfulness is, as opposed to attentional skill training, is a set of strategies that people who are meditating and sitting in silence and they're figuring out like what really helps this process go. Well, the first one is don't be judgmental. If you see something, if you start meditating and you start to see certain patterns of your mind and you start getting mad at yourself, how helpful do you think that's going to be? Right? How helpful when you go, oh, I suck at this. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, I can't do this. This is horrible. These kind of thoughts start, percolating up in the brain, and you're judging yourself. So the thing is, when we start to do these practices, the judge is going to be there. But the thing is that can you see that it's not helpful? And when you know it's not helpful, you don't have to fight the judge. You don't push it or resist it away. But you're just like, I'm not interested in that anymore. It's like someone put on a TV program that you just don't really like, but you have to kind of sit there. So, you know what? It's going on. It's still there, but you're putting your attention on something else. You're talking to a friend or something going on. So that's what you do. You put it on something that you value. Having acceptance, being okay with what is. I'm going to go this a little quicker. And then have an attitude that's open and curious. Because one of the big things, I'm going to go over these pitfalls I want to go over quickly, is two things that I see when people do these type of practices. One is you try to control your thoughts. And it's been kind of taught. And the more you control your thoughts, there's a couple of us that can do it for a little bit, but that actually is a problem because it actually hurts it in the long run. But for most of us, we don't. Our minds are constantly chattering. How many voices in our heads are going off right now? Maybe judging me, maybe judging what's going on, maybe judging other things, maybe commenting, interpreting, analyzing, categorizing. It's this constant chatter in our brain. So most of your brain is generating thoughts that you're not controlling. So if you go in there and you're like, all right, you come up with the idea that, all right, I need to have a silent mind. All right, it makes sense. I mean, when I need to do other things externally, I do something about it intentionally. If I need to stop something, I prevent it. If I need to do something, I activate it. That's not the same here. This is internal work. Internal work is different than external work. And in internal work, when the mind, and you're trying to stop your mind, that's mind versus mind. That's a double bind. It's not going to work. You're going to get frustrated. And what's cool is you'll get the feedback. You'll get the feedback. You'll be frustrated, you'll be irritable. But the problem is we generally interpret it, well, I suck, or this sucks, or this is not going to help. No, it's actually teaching you something very powerful here. It's that if you try to resist your thoughts, you're going to make yourself miserable. And that's really helpful to know. The other thing is being results focused. So we often package meditation with, you're going to feel great, you feel peaceful, you're going to do all this stuff because, we need to get people to be interested in this kind of stuff. I mean, we have to drive that. But the problem with that is then you become results focused. And sometimes when you meditate, you're not going to feel great. You're not going to feel good because essentially, meditation wasn't about feeling good. It wasn't about, feeling good. It was actually training your attention, training your mind and your attention to be able to accurately perceive your reality and respond to it in a reflective way, with wisdom and skill. It had nothing to do with, I want to feel good, or I want to feel bliss, or I want to feel relaxed, or anything. Yes, those are common side effects of meditation, but if you strive for them, you're going to usually put your attention, again, this is an intentional practice. So if you're thinking of at the end, oh man, after this 10 minutes, I can't wait. How much of your attention is actually involved with what's going on, and how much is anticipating what it's going to have? You split and you make your attention weak. And so the effects are going to be very weak. And if anything, you probably not want to continue them. So you want to be process focused. So you're paying attention to the present moment. You're just watching what is happening without language. That's really what it's all about. It's about stepping outside of the world of language and just watching and just looking and sensing and activating. And what that does is it activates the right side of our brain for most of us in this kind of gestalt, kind of holistic way of thinking, and activates all different types of new connections in your brain and creative solutions. So what I like to teach, because I find that, unless I find a motivated person, 3-minute meditation a day. 3 minutes. If you can start with that, and then you can always bring it up if you like that, or do a couple 3 minutes a day. And at the end of this, if we're okay with it, I'll teach you a 3-minute meditation if you guys are cool with that. But we'll do that at the end. Okay. How does mindfulness help? I'm going to go quickly through this. Again, we talked about it. Stimulates neuroplasticity. It integrates top-down processing. This is one of the most powerful ones that I see with my clients. I give my clients the 21-day meditation challenge, and I set them up for this. And some clients I will go beyond 3 minutes because, like they have ADHD or some other kinds of things, and I know they're motivated to do it. And I give them that 21-day challenge because I notice time to time, usually it's about the 14th day, but I like to say 21 just to make sure, like, wow, I'm not as irritable anymore. I noticed that when I'm in line, it used to piss me off, and now I'm in line, and it didn't piss me off today. It's kind of interesting. Some guy actually called me, kind of a dirty name, and I got a little angry, but nowhere near the anger that I used to have when I used to have it. I was driving the other day, and there was a lot of traffic, and I was late, and yeah, I was stressed, but it really wasn't as stressful. That's what I hear time and time again. Why? Because the most evolved part of your brain has basically 3 major parts. I'm not going to go too much into this, but the top part, the cortex, which means the bark in Latin, is your most evolved part. That's the part that does the thinking, the planning, the executive functioning, all those cool things that we do that other animals don't do as well as we do, anywhere near as well. And then our middle part is that emotional brain. And the emotional brain is reactive, it's impulsive, it's energetic though. That's where you get your energy. All your energy. That's why, when you see, I'm sure you have a couple people here who have, loved ones that may have schizophrenia or some other very severe schizoaffective disorder, negative symptoms, amotivation, not in flat affect. Affect being emotional states where they are just flat, they can't actually have any, they're not high, they're not low. What happens? They're also amotivated. There's a good reason. Those two are things. Emotions drive us. What connects you to buy a big item like a car or a house or something like that? Yeah, we analyze it, we like to do that, but in the end it's this gut feeling that we get, this emotional reaction. Do we feel connected to it? Does it make, that whole making sense is an emotional response to someone. When you're with someone, why do you spend time with them? Are they just pissing you off, or are they someone that you really enjoy and you love to be around with? Emotion. So what it does is that our primary, this top evolutionary brain, inhibits or regulates the emotional system. So when the emotional system, like when we're born, there's very little of this top part. It's called the cortex here. So why do you think when like a 1-year-old can go, "Wah!" cry their head off, and then the next time they're giggling, laughing? We would call that borderline disorder if we were, but that's not what's happening. What's happening is that they don't have that break. They don't have the top-down break to help that. And so by meditating, you actually increase the connections between the two. So this gives you a little bit of, it kind of gives it a little bit of a break, because emotions, we can handle most emotions, even sadness, but it's when they're level, we rank them on a 0 to 10. Once it goes above 7, go to a 7 or above, is generally when we start to run into issues. Again, there's ways to work with that, but we want to stay in that kind of sweet zone, and that's what it does. It kind of shifts it down. So if your irritability level is just, if you go to 0 to 8 in like a none, because one person gives you a dirty look and you're at an 8. Well, by consistently applying this, we can shift it. We shift it to a 6, 5. And this is what I see consistently in my practice. But in essence, when we're looking at it from a psychological standpoint, it leads to greater clarity and wisdom in your life. And then, with all the information that we have, we start to also learn to trust ourselves again. And oftentimes we've lost that trust. And this will help regain it. And regain it when we have trust in ourselves, that then engenders confidence. When we have trust, when we have confidence, and we can direct our attention on what we value, our motivation goes up. Those are the key components for that. So I'm going to go through, these are all like the scientific studies that I run this site and give you some background, but this is not just me spouting. There's a lot of, there's so many studies that have shown the benefits of meditation. Principle number 6, rhythm and rituals are vital to a healthy mind and body. And I touched on this a little bit, so I'm going to go through this one a little quickly. But the mind and body run on rhythm and anticipate events. So you want to do, like I said, a morning ritual. So I'll give you an example of I'll give you a little bit of my own ritual. So when I first wake up, I go take a shower. Now, I'm not going to get into this, but at the end of the shower, I go 60 seconds on the coldest temperature possible. It's a technique to actually develop better mitochondria in your body, which are energy production cells in your body. So it actually vamps up your energy. You do it gently. You don't jar your body. So you get yourself a little bit warmer than normal. That's my little secret. So you actually want to go colder, and then you go into, and then you slowly bring it in. I don't want anyone having a heart attack out here. So slowly go to the coldest temperature, and generally on your chest and on your face. I do that. Come out, and I go out and I have a trampoline that I go on that I just like to get, because I'm going to be seeing patients. I'm going to be sitting my butt down for a long period of time. So I need to get my body up and going. I go on a trampoline that's outside. I have a balcony that I go outside, so I'm getting sunlight. And getting sunlight consistently at a particular time will set your biological clock, more powerful than anything else. And then I eat a healthy breakfast. So whether I'm usually eating those berries, those cherries, those pomegranate seeds, and I'm mixing it with the nuts and seeds that we talked about. And I didn't mention this before, but when you combine those two, you actually, some of the compounds in those berries actually require fat to get absorbed in there. And the nuts and seeds have special compounds that help you absorb those by up to 10 times more than without them. So, and I blend them up. Why? Because most of those compounds are inside the cell walls, and often we're in a rush for eating things and gobbling it down. So when you blend it in a high-power blender like a Vitamix or anything like that, it does it for you. So you can absorb it. You can easily. Those of us, as you get older, your digestion gets weaker, our acid gets less. So by blending things, by doing things, you can rapidly make it easier for a body to absorb these. So when you're making your rituals, think of your 5 senses. What would you like to do to stimulate your sight? What would you like to do that's pleasurable for your sight so you can have pictures up on YouTube or something like that, or have something along those lines, or watch a video that's positive on YouTube or something along. And then you can go with the view and sound. You can create playlists of music that you like that get you going, and so on and so forth, with songs, aromas, body movements, clothing, tea to help yourself through the days of transition. So I like the morning ritual, I'm done with work ritual, and the nighttime ritual, because when you do this, especially this the I'm done with work ritual, you will be able to, it doesn't happen really quickly, but over time, you know when you're carrying over work, you know you're sitting with your loved one, you just can't stop thinking about work. And the other one knows you're not there. You're like, they're like talking and you're kind of trying to pay attention, but you keep going back to this project or what the boss might have said to you, and you're just like, and then that person's in tune, and then they get mad at you. They may not know exactly why, but they may know it's obvious they know why. But otherwise, they get mad at you. Now you're bringing in, the anger is already there, because then, now that just gets polarized and boom, and then you have an interesting relationship. I'm done with work ritual tells your brain, I'm done with work. You can't just say that. You have to actually do it through actions and behaviors, which will train your body to go in that direction. Also, if you can find a couple people like who have torches and stuff like that, and you want to bring them up there, I mean, go knock yourself out. And, you know, do some crazy stuff. You know, it can be a lot of fun. Principle number 7. Learn to handle your thoughts and emotions with skill and wisdom, which will lead to greater happiness. And since we're getting closer to the end, I'm not sure if I should just hold it there, because we're now at the psychological strategies, or I can kind of quickly go through the whole thing. I don't know. I don't know what people's preferences are.
Well, I have a suggestion. If this is a break, I think people probably have questions that will then take up some time too.
Okay.
So we'll have you come back and do the...
Great. And we'll start with principle number 7 then. And that way we can at least go over, but I think, yeah, if I go over all 10, it might be just a little bit too much. I'll show a couple things at the end that just kind of give you a couple suggestions on how to stack a couple of these principles together to make it into an easy program, so you're not spending 5 hours a day just trying to make your brain stronger, and then you miss your job and you go broke. That's not what we want to do. We want to make things strategic and efficient. You don't have to work out as much as you thought you needed. You can actually get away with, if you know it, if you use knowledge and wisdom and science, we can actually make it quicker. All right, so I will hold the presentation at that point, and I'm ready, open for questions. Actually, I would like to do a 3-minute meditation if you guys are cool with that. What do you guys think of that? Okay. And if you guys want, I have many 3-minute meditations programs in my phone. So if you guys want, at the end, I'm going to provide my email. And if you want it, just give it to me. I'll send it to you. So again, remember the 2 pitfalls, mind versus mind. So thoughts come. What I call it the attentional boomerang. Your attention is going to get seduced by a particular thought. Some thoughts it doesn't matter, but another thought, ooh, that will grab it. You get seduced by it. You notice it's connected, and instead of fighting it, I don't want to think about that. You just take your attention and redirect it. And we're going to give certain body areas. It's usually good to start with a body area and sensing that area as an anchor to be able to reestablish it. So it goes off, it comes back. It goes off, it comes back. And that's all you do. It's gentle. You're not fighting it. You will. I mean, I did too, you know, and occasionally I still do. But you'll notice it and you'll get frustrated. It'll give you automatic feedback. And you'll know, oh yeah, all right, I'm fighting with my mind. That's my mind versus mind. It's not going to work. And then that's wisdom. And then you start developing that. The other thing is being process focused. This is the 3-minute meditation, so I think most of us can just stay in the now. And just noticing what it's like. What does your body feel like while you're doing it? Not saying that, but just sensing it. So what we want to do is, in general, we want to come out of the world of language and enter into the world of direct experience. That's really what this is, in a non-distractive way. So we distract ourselves constantly. So it's really getting used to that. Okay. So what I'd like to do, and what you can do, and I'm going to give you just a couple instructions beforehand, is use your senses to ground your mind back into the actual only moment there is. This is the only moment, the present moment. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. It's just a memory, and the future is just your imagination. It's only this moment that exists. So by putting your attention in this moment, this is the only moment that you can create positive change. And just like I said, the more attention you can gather, it's like a laser. It becomes more powerful. The more you can do that, dramatic change can happen. Okay, I think I've talked enough. So everyone, just allow your eyelids to close. Find a comfortable resting place for your eyes. And just bring your attention to the sounds that are going on in the room. Notice their volume. Notice their pitch. And if your mind's generating thoughts, it's usually a voice in the head. Treat that like a sound, but an internal sound. So you're not really paying attention. You're just hearing it like you would hear the sound of this fan that's going on. And that way you just keep your attention in the actual present moment. Then bring your attention down into your lower belly, just below your belly button. And put your attention there. And allow yourself to be breathed by your body. Don't manipulate it, don't control it, don't try to make it deeper or shorter or any other way. Let go of the steering wheel. And kind of be curious about this. What's it like when I just allow my body to breathe me? What does it feel like? What's the sense of it? Notice on the inhale the belly expanding and stretch. And then on the exhale the belly gently relaxing and letting go. So just notice this wave-like effect of the breath. Inhale, stretch. Exhale, letting go. Now I want to just add one more element to it. And that is, on the exhale, just say inside your mind, let go and let be. Or any other phrase that's synonymous with that works for you. So your natural inhale takes place. Exhale, let go, let be. Then go ahead and bring your attention up to your jaw, both your upper and lower jaw. And notice the sensations it's providing. Then let your natural breath take place. On the inhale, and then on the exhale, invite your jaw to let go and let be. Don't force it. If it doesn't let go, that's okay. We're just opening the invitation, and that's all you can do. Less is more. Then bring your attention down to your chest. Notice the sensations that are going on in your chest. And again, notice on the inhale and on On the exhale, let go and let be. Then go to your neck and shoulders. Sense the sensations there. And again, inhale and exhale, let go and let be. Again, just an invitation. And then finally, go to your lower belly. Notice if the breath has changed at all. And again, one final. Take a slightly deeper breath. And as you exhale, let go and let be. Just let it all out. You can open your eyes. Okay. So I'm open for questions, comments on that, or anything else. Let me just get a little sip here. My voice is a little bit dry. But I'm open for questions, comments, concerns. Yes?
A question on nightmares. Are they, first of all, are they typical, or do they become more pronounced and more frequent under certain conditions?
They do. They come under pronounced and frequent, especially in trauma. Trauma. Yes.
What was the question?
Oh yeah, he was asking about nightmares and whether there are certain conditions in which they become more prevalent, more frequent. And I was saying the number one that came to mind right away is people with PTSD and trauma. What happens is when you have very intense experiences, the mind is not able to process that perceptual information that was gathered during the traumatic experience and the emotions that were going on there. It flooded it. So the brain has to then take information. When you're, right now, you're taking in the information, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you're feeling in the chair, what you're hearing in my voice, and what you're feeling right now. And your brain is packaging that, and it's integrating it into it. And your hippocampus, which is a special area where puts all the pieces together, and then it goes up to the brain and creates a nice little story, which we call memory. And that's a nice way to do it. When we're under trauma, we get flooded with cortisol in our brain. And the ability of your brain, which then directly, especially if it's really severe damage, like throws your hippocampus off balance, so it can't really bring the pieces in properly. And what happens is then the whole perceptual experience stays raw, and it doesn't get packaged in this nice little story that becomes a memory. It becomes this raw blips of like intense emotional information. And that's why people get flashbacks, where they feel like they're actually there, are very powerful, intrusive memories, or going to sleep in nightmares, or repeating events, or things that are simulated to that. Also, when you're under chronic anxiety, nightmares can happen. How many people, when they used to go to school, like before that first day of school, would have that anxiety dream, whether you didn't do your homework, whether you were naked, or whatever it might have been. But when we're in psychological conflict, and if we're not dealing it within the waking world, our brain makes an attempt to try to deal with it in the sleeping world. That kind of conflict, the brain is trying to process the information of the day, and when it's under duress and stress, it's kind of, those things get heightened, and the emotional charge is not let go, so you're kind of like in this tense state, and that can activate nightmares. Anybody else?
How does CBT fit into what you were talking about?
CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah. So CBT was a beautiful therapy run by Aaron Beck, who kind of really took away when we had the psychodynamic therapy where people would lie on the couch and spend like 5 years trying to figure out what's going on with them. He kind of cut through and said, you know what, thoughts and what we think influences how we feel. So if we can restructure our thoughts, then we can restructure how we feel, and if we do that consistently enough, we can change our mood and potentially help us. And so it's because it's manualized, it works perfectly for scientific studies. So there's a lot of science, with CBT, because a lot of the other therapies are a little more open-ended, a little harder to study. So it became one of the dominant, treatments out there, and that's basically the mindfulness component. So there was a couple people saying, well, how can we make CBT better? Because it works well, but there's a lot of holes in there. It's not as well as we would like to think, but it is a very powerful, and if you find the right practitioner, it can be a very useful tool. But we can add the mindfulness component, which is called MBCT, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, they found that actually they can get even more robust responses as well. And it basically, and essentially, is just being able to notice your thoughts, the patterns. Your mind is a thought; it's a pattern machine. How many brand new? And I know, you're like, well, what am I going to have for lunch on the 19th? Is slightly different, but that are the same patterns of thoughts today. What percentage of patterns of thoughts are similar to ones that you had yesterday, the day before that? How many brand new radical thoughts have you had today? Like just totally radical, like, wow, I never thought anything like that before. How many did you have today? Right? Our mind is a habit. Yeah, our mind is a habit, essentially. And so a lot of the times, as there's so much information going on, what the brain needs to do is it creates these little, takes them out of your conscious awareness, and then they just running behind the scenes. So oftentimes, like a lot of the stuff that we learned as kids is still running underneath there. It never got upgraded. So one of our jobs to do is be able to kind of retrieve those old patterns, those old kind of ways of thinking, the beliefs that were created. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. Are very common ones. I'll never get better. I'll never be, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of negative beliefs. So by kind of bringing them, flushing them out to the surface, we get to take a look at them, and you recognize they're not you. They were just conditioned into you. And when you start to really experientially notice the difference, and notice that that thought is not who you are, has nothing to do about your actual essence, and it's just a conditioned pattern that's been holding you back. And you can see it, and you see it that it goes and comes and goes, yet you're there throughout the whole time. Then you can learn to, in cognitive, that they directly go and restructure it. What's a more rational thought than that thought? And then each time you have that situation you're in, you keep going to the more rational thought, and you basically, it's like a drilling way to kind of restructure, so that when you go into those situations that would normally trigger these negative types of thinking, it now triggers these more quote-unquote rational thoughts, which then has a more profound effect on your emotional response. Okay?
You mentioned in regard to mindfulness, in regard to schizophrenia, or lack of motivation is quote a symptom or can be.
It's a negative symptom, amotivation. Yeah, that's when the dopamine levels are dysregulated in that cortex center, and also in the limbic system.
So are you saying then through something like mindfulness, you can reprogram some of that to sort of stimulate motivation back or something?
Yeah, it's a tricky, because this is like, with any new habit, there's a catalyst. There's a catalytic energy that needs to apply. So willpower is what we usually use almost through all our things, but willpower is a limiting force. You can't use that, if you don't sleep well, if you don't have a lot of energy, if you're making a ton of decisions, it's called decisional fatigue. So when you're making your most important decisions, make it at the time at your highest level of energy, whenever that is during your day. So if you're like around 11 o'clock, you just had a couple, that's when you want to make your better decisions. Because as your day goes on, they have studied your decision making, making wise, it just plummets. And actually caffeine didn't change that. So if they gave them the extra caffeine, like say 6 p.m. and they had them do it, they thought they were making better decisions, but they didn't. They actually didn't. What actually helped was a little nap in between. Actually kind of boosted that up. So yeah, so
you're saying there's a way to sort of enhance the motivational part through one of these techniques?
Yeah, so you have to find the portal to kind of get that energy up enough so that the person will be engaged. One of the struggle, I think the biggest struggle with the integrative approach is that it requires a lot more engagement on the client's end. It's not just like, here's 3 pills, go ahead, take it in the morning, take this one, PRN, and take this one at night. It's like, it's really, initially it takes work. And so what I generally do with clients with that is that I'll try to do things to boost up, like nutritionally, if like maybe they have a supportive family member and they're willing to at least change some of their diet and maybe do a little bit of walking and get some of that energy going and build up a positive momentum. And then we can get maybe start with like a 3-minute meditation and just do it consistently. The key to people with low energy is that you got to just do very small steps and just start slow, little by little, but consistent. Because when they drop it, then they feel like, oh, I'm not good enough, I can't do this. So we just make it very simple, and you tie it with healthy rewards that motivate that behavior again. Then we can build upon that. And then, if we get that momentum to that point, we can start to actually improve motivational systems and all the other stuff. But you have to get to that level of enough catalytic energy to start the behavior long enough so that it becomes self-reinforcing. It's the same thing, and let me just bring this point up because I think it's really important for you to know when you're taking on, maybe you're going to take on one or two of these habits, and I don't know. But let me give you a quick kind of thing. When I first started doing the going out in the sunshine, because I just read about it, like when I was like 20, I'd go out there and my mood got better, I felt better, I had more energy. But what I was doing was I was bringing my stopwatch, like clock, and I was like, I know I need to do 10 minutes. So I had to go out there in 10 minutes, and I'd be out there, and I'm looking at it. So I'm focused on waiting. I'm like, I can't wait till 10 minutes later. I'm going to feel good. I got my energy, so I keep doing this. And I got, I felt good. I got good energy. I didn't continue doing it after a while. Why? Because every time I was doing it, I wasn't actually enjoying the actual activity itself. If you can't find a pull within the activity, so that if you have to constantly push yourself to do it, try it for a little bit, but just recognize if it doesn't last, you have to find the pull within the activity itself to keep it going. Once that takes place, then you don't need your willpower that much anymore, and that will help you to keep the habit going. But if you're constantly pushing, and that's all that's driving this, even with benefits, that's why you stop. That's why being process focused is so important.
So I'm curious, obviously your treatment that you provide for clients is customized for the client.
Yeah.
So how customized versus structured is it? I mean, you have a lot of stuff that you do. Does every client follow some structure, or is it totally customized, or is it a balance of both?
Yeah. So I generally, like for instance, it's really hard to work with, especially it depends on the severity of the condition. In the severity of the condition, then we need to get things moving quickly. We need to get to, but we also need to be sure that they have enough energy to take on the pattern so they don't drop it and then feel bad. So yeah, you have to kind of do it, but some of the fundamentals are what I'm teaching you here, and definitely the number one for me, if I'm looking at a client right away, is how's your sleep? Let me hear about your sleep. Do you feel well rested when you wake up? If not, we have to explore that. I usually will go after sleep first. And while we're doing sleep, we'll start to improve and clean up the diet. Let's clean up the diet. What are you willing to do? Can we do that? And it's almost like I'm bargaining with them a little bit. But there are certain things I'm like, well, listen, you can do that, but but I don't force it because listen, I'm there just I think of myself part therapist, part psychiatrist, part coach. And so I'm not here to push my own agenda. I mean, you're the person spending their time and their money and they're doing all that stuff. So I'm trying to get them to get the most out of it. But I also understand that there are certain things we have to go with where the person is at. If I start throwing out like 10 principles out there right now and everybody's like, whoa, it's like trying to pick up too many jelly beans, eventually you're just going to drop them all. So that's where it is. So the answer is that the sleep, the nutrition, so all my clients, right after the first visit, they will get 2 sheets that give them a summation of nutritional principles and sleep enhancement protocol. And they both get that, and all my clients get that. And then, based on their presentation of symptoms, that's like foundation, and then from there we build it. And almost all my clients, actually every one of my clients, will get at least a 3-minute meditation and some breath work. I didn't get into breath work because it's just too much stuff, but I'll teach them some basic things because they don't teach it, which your primary care could teach this, and some of them do. I have one that works with me that's really like that, but oftentimes it's not the doctors themselves, it's the system we're under. We're literally trained in residency to overwork ourselves. So there's no wonder we actually look probably a lot of times more unhealthy than the clients that we're treating. We look tired. We're working with so much legalese and paperwork and all the other things. We spend, I think it was estimated, I could be a little off here, 30% of our time is spent with patients, 70% of the time is spent with charting, administration, legal, and that's training. And then we see too many clients. I make sure for me the most of clients I'll see in one day is 6 hours of clients. I keep it to 6 hours because psychiatric work, unless I'm just writing scripts and I'm just calculating symptoms and I'm not really getting emotionally engaged, but if you're with someone who's in an emotionally difficult situation, it takes a lot of energy to be with that person. So it's like going to a massage therapist. You don't want to go to that massage therapist as the 8th massage client on there. there, and then you're just getting an oil smear. You want to have someone who's fresh in there, and so for me, that's very important. I'm very kind of in tune with that. So occasionally I'll go to 7 if it's a special circuit. I can push myself to, but in general I try to keep it to 6. But that's what we have. We do 12, 15-minute med checks for psychiatry. How quickly does it take for you to actually open up some of the deeper stuff that you may be a little ashamed about, a little guilty about? You're not going to get into any of that stuff in 15 minutes. And so it runs a perpetual cycle of dependency on just using medications and circling them around and going around. And again, I'm not against medications, but it's only one tool in so many tools that we have now that we can put together. And remember, the medication is actually just changing the chemical balance. But the chemical imbalance theory that we have is nowhere near as powerful as neuroplasticity. It's like you have an engine that's leaking oil, and what we're doing is we just come up with better ways of getting more oil into the engine. But we don't actually fix the engine itself. Neuroplasticity is fixing the engine at its roots. And that's where, because that's where the power comes in. And then you won't have a chemical imbalance anymore. You won't need to take those other things. Or if you do, you can just take a small dose that doesn't, I have some clients where it's been chronic long enough that they may need a little bit of medication chronically, but it's at a much lower dose. Much lower dose, less toxicity, less side effects, higher quality of life.
So I've had my own meditation practice using Kriya Yoga for about a year and a half. It's helped a lot with my own schizophrenia. And it's gotten me to the point where a lot of things have gotten me to the point where I'm recovering. And when I've read up on the tremendous loss of brain matter within the condition, it says that there's some opportunities for me to help out meditation.
That's right.
What I have also heard that brain matter reduces over time. What are some ways to counteract that? Are there ways to improve brain matter quality?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, basically all those stimulate them. So you really want to still, things like the BDNF, that brain fertilizer I was talking about, the neuroplasticity, the exercise, the nutrition, staying away from sugar and oxidized fats, the kind of refined carbohydrates that are going up and down and all that stuff. That will preserve, because what you're doing is, when you sleep is when your brain detoxes the most. That's when it detoxes the most. It's actually, like I said, the energy level the amount of energy it's using doesn't actually change, but it gets redistributed to other areas. And a lot of those areas are for repair and for rejuvenation and detoxification. One of the things that detoxifies, and I'll give you, is beta amyloid. And some of you maybe heard of beta amyloid. It's one of the toxic proteins that develops in Alzheimer's disease. Well, let me give you how important sleep is for the brain. So when the brain is not encased in blood, by the way, it's encased in cerebral spinal fluid, which is a clear fluid. Then you have the unfortunate thing of having a spinal tap. Your whole central nervous system, you put it in there, and you actually get clear fluid to come out. So this clear fluid actually nourishes and it detoxifies. But when your brain is in a awake state, you guys have seen brains like kind of wrinkly, corrugated structure like this, and it's all tight and packed away like this, and it has these little sulci, which are these little creases that go on. But it's very packed. So during the day, that CSF can only circulate mostly on the outside. But most of your brain is all that stuff that's going on the inside. As you sleep, the brain cells get a little bit smaller, which create these gaps, these kind of nice little valleys, so that when you're sleeping, the CSF not only can go on the outside, it goes through the brain, nourishing it, taking away the toxins that build up in the day, giving it the nutrients it vitally needs, and doing all of that for you. They actually discovered a new system, relatively recently, it's kind of interesting, a new drainage system. It's called the lymphatic system. That's right back in here. And by going into that system and getting your deep sleep, so things that promote deep sleep also will help with that as well. There are certain, meditation just before sleep tends to enhance deep sleep. There are certain supplements that help with deep sleep that people can use. Things like magnesium can help with that. 5-HTP can help with that. L-tryptophan can help with that. You got to be careful if you're taking medications with some of these things. Please, and with any of these supplements that I mentioned, make sure you check it with your doctor. For instance, the 5-HTP-tryptophan are precursors to serotonin. If you're on an antidepressant, you could possibly get too much serotonin. So you need to work with a skilled practitioner, or at least someone who would be willing to kind of monitor you if you use some of these other things that help out for you. L-theanine is one of my favorites for sleep and helping with deep sleep. L-theanine actually puts your brain right now, all of us, because we're awake, hopefully, and alert. And we're primarily in beta. As that back, it's a pretty fast brainwave. When we get into that kind of nice, like, you're just relaxing, just kind of like, it's like almost daydreaming, and you just feel good. But you're alert, but you're a little bit in that kind of nice, relaxed, alert state. That's alpha. And then all of a sudden you start getting almost like, if you just had a couple days, you didn't sleep well, and you try to pay attention, you're in a meeting, you're kind of walking, and then you're getting little dreamettes are kind of popping up there. That's your in theta, and then of course the deepest stage is delta. So that alpha state, that relaxed, yet alert state, is benefited by L-theanine by a lot of people. The other benefit that it has is that how many people use coffee or caffeine here? Coffee, caffeine, some sort of caffeine. Well, they have at least 4 studies that I know that the combination of L-theanine with caffeine actually reduces the side effects of caffeine. People will get a little tremor, people feel a little bit anxious. They'll reduce most of those symptoms, and it actually improves the alertness. The alert, not the energy. Actually, it gets a little more smoother. It makes it last a little longer. So I use that commonly for my attention deficit clients who tend to use caffeine. I generally like to get them off caffeine, but if they're not willing to do it, I give them the L-theanine, and I tell them to take it at night so they get deeper sleep.
What's that?
L-theanine. L-T-H-E-A-N-I-N-E.
Is that a prescription?
No, it's a supplement that you get online. I definitely send all my clients to Amazon.com. Basically, they're so great. If you don't have to benefit every day, it's wonderful. One of the benefits of it.
On the subject of sleep, how do you deal with someone who can fall asleep like this, but then wakes up after a few hours and cannot get back to sleep?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a complex issue, and it may require different things. It depends. It sometimes can be, it takes a history in the sense of, is there chronic stress going on? Is there trauma going on? What may be causing that early awakening? Is there hormonal changes that are going on? Women who are going through menopause or premenopausal periods, sometimes that will happen too. Is there a depression that's going on? As I said, that early morning, what we call terminal insomnia is the actual technical term. And that's that early morning awakening. Like you're only waking up at 7, now you're waking up at 4, you're not able to go to bed. What I generally recommend is finding guided meditations that you make prior to. They found that if you meditate and you're just relaxing, you don't worry about whether you sleep or you don't sleep. It doesn't matter. You'll get a lot of the benefits of sleep even if you don't fall asleep. So you don't have to worry about trying. So I generally have them have a couple, either it's nonverbal music they just like to listen to, and that's how they kind of do while they listen to like a guided meditation. That way you don't have to do it yourself. You have someone else and you're in a very passive role, which will sometimes help you kind of fall back to sleep. I generally then will sometimes use certain fast-acting kind of things like sublingual low-dose melatonin, where you're putting it on the tongue and get more rapid absorption. There are certain herbal tinctures that I sometimes use, with like valerian with passion flower combination, because when you put a tincture, you can hold it in your mouth for about 30 seconds, and then you'll get an effect in about 20 minutes. As opposed to if you take a full pill, it may take like an hour, and then by then your mind's thinking about the day. The other strategy I have is that I tell them if they have a lot of thoughts that come up during that time period, the ones that keep circulating, write them down in your auxiliary brain storage. So that you just say, all right, listen, brain, I'm going to write it down. I know you keep telling me, so I'm going to write it down, and I will deal with it. If I get good sleep, you're negotiating with your brain. If I get good sleep, I'll be much better to handle this. And you'll feel better, and I will feel better. You can figure out a way. It actually is helpful to do that sometimes. I know it sounds a bit strange. But it literally starts to, you get into a better relation. Rather than you're fighting with yourself, you start to create, just be on your own side. If there's anything I can say, you don't have to love yourself, you don't have to like yourself, just be on your own side. If you can be on your own side, there's tremendous benefit to doing that. But if you're beating yourself up, how how in the world are you going to feel better if you're just beating yourself, beating yourself? Now, the program's may be going on for a while, but just lose interest in that. If you recognize, is that helpful? What happens when I believe in that judgment? What happens when I listen to that? I do this, I do that, I do that. Okay, you may need to do that a couple times, but really see it clearly, how painful it is, how much suffering it causes you. Keep doing it. Eventually, your brain will be like, ha! And it'll start to change. But it takes time, and it takes a little bit of consistency.
Thank you, doctor.
All right.
All right.